Yo, what's going on, people? So, today we're going to be doing something a little bit different with the channel. So, one thing that I've wanted to do with the channel for quite a while now is have other people feature on it and have the chance to tell their stories. When it comes to our experiences with hair loss, I think sometimes when you hear different people's perspectives, different people's experiences, it provides even more motivation to being able to conquer that fear and insecurity that comes with hair loss. And with that being said, I'm very proud today and very honored to announce my first ever guest on the channel who's offered to share his story and his experiences and hopefully inspire you guys with his story. So I want to take the time to welcome Sean. Thank you for coming on the channel.
No problem, Ricky. I'm happy to be here. Hi, everyone else.
Thank you. So I want to start by just asking you firstly, Sean, when it comes to your hair loss, when did you begin to notice you were losing your hair and what was your initial reaction to it?
I think I first noticed when I was probably 19 going on 20, just before my 20th birthday, it was. I'm 32 now, so you're talking about 13 years ago.
Long time.
Yeah, long time, yeah. To start sort of a bit before that, what was quite difficult was, for quite a few years, I was getting my hair cut by a local barber.
Yeah.
He never remembered what it was. I was going every couple of weeks. And he told me without fail every single time that I spoke to him that I had the thickest hair that he'd ever cut. He must have been in his 60s. He'd been doing it for decades. And he said I had the thickest hair he'd ever cut. So I never thought that personally it'd be a problem for me until I got to about 19, 20. Mm-hmm. Now, when I first noticed it, it was because my hair was so thick. It wasn't that bad. It wasn't so noticeable to me. It first started going kind of on the top here, on the old crown. But I think other than maybe sort of brothers, sisters, my mum and dad, who probably saw me all the time, they might have noticed it, but I don't think any friends made any comments about it for a good 3-4 years. It must have been. But yeah, I was absolutely petrified. Absolutely petrified. I always took so much pride in my hair. Mm-hmm. At the time as well, when I first started sort of going out into town and all that kind of stuff, it was very much the indie rock scene. So I kind of had that long sort of Oasis style sort of hair that I was always trying to, it was a very big part of kind of my image, if you like, at the time.
Exactly.
So so when I did sort of notice it going, it was pretty devastating. And one thing that actually comes to mind, and it kind of makes me cringe now when I talk about it, but I do remember saying to my mum the first time I realised something along the lines of, if I ever do lose my hair, I have no idea how I'm going to cope. I don't know how life can go on for me the way it should without hair. I really don't know how I can manage.
I've been there, man.
It was just unbelievable. It was unbelievable. And the thing is as well, one thing that I always kind of thought to myself was, it wasn't necessarily the going bald that was a problem. Mm-hmm. It was more, for me, it was more losing my hair at that age was a kind of a problem.
That's a major
I think it was a bit
thing.
like, I think with me, I think it was more, okay, if I'm going to lose my hair, that's fine. At least give me up until I'm 40 or 50 first, before I then have to worry about it. And then, but anyway, the first couple of years, I didn't like it, but I could cope. No one else was spotting my issue.
Yeah.
So once I started getting to sort of my mid-20s, then I was still trying so hard to maintain this kind of indie image that I had. But the older I got, the thinner the hair got. So it just started to look, it was kind of straggly. I don't know if that's the right word, but it was kind of, it was just dying. The life was just sapping out of it. And then it got to a point in 2015 where I found your video where you first shaved your head.
Yeah, well, I
And
took the plunge finally.
that kind of took me, yeah, and that kind of took me on a bit of a journey, like down, like, you know how you go down the wormhole of YouTube, and
Yep.
you're sort of scrolling and scrolling, and yeah, and I'm now 32. That was 2015, and it's taken me 4 years from that video to then do it. So I think it shows that everyone's got a time frame, and I think everyone does it in their own time and can't be told. I think you know when the time's right.
Yeah, I agree with that definitely, because sometimes people before even you notice, sometimes other people will notice, and that's the case with me. My friends noticed it before I noticed it, and I had that same perception where I used to keep my hair long at the top and I didn't want to let it go, and maybe subconsciously I knew that I should be letting it go, but it's like you said, when you're that young, when you're in your early 20s and you're losing your hair, you can't picture that. You can't picture being bald, because it's just, even in the media and the way it's portrayed, it's associated with being an old person's look. So it's just, it does seem like the end of the world.
Absolutely.
So in terms of your friends, then they didn't really react to it at that point.
Absolutely not. No, the first, I'd probably say from about 20 up until I was about 24, I don't think anybody would have noticed it. I really don't. Again, maybe apart from close family and thing. But I don't think anyone would have noticed it. I really don't. I never even got to a point where I had to. You hear so many stories of guys who kind of will style their hair in a certain way that will cover certain spots on their head and that kind of thing. I never even felt the need to do that at any point. It just, with me, it got to a point where it was noticeably what was happening was this long thick hair that I had, where I could go out into the wind and it wouldn't move, was suddenly now sort of all over the place. And it was that moment when I kind of realised that there is literally nothing I can do. There's nothing I can put in my hair. There's no sort of product that will stop me having to look in car windows every car I pass and sort of make sure that it's all covered. And that's when I really realised that it was now a problem for me. It was now an issue that I don't think I can no longer hide. And that's where I went down. I really went downhill, Ricky, at that point. I don't like to use words like this but it was depressing. I really do think I did slip into some form of depression for a good couple of years, I think. A good couple of years. I mean, some of the things that I would do to avoid situations where I thought people could notice my hair thinning were insane. If I was driving my car, and I would never have someone sat in the back in case they could see
it,
my bald spot from the back seat. That was something that I could, if I had to go on a journey where it took more, when I was had to take more than one person, I was always like, no, I'll take one person in the front seat and that's it. No one's coming in the back. That was, absolutely. That one point, that was really sort of a real big turning point for me. And I've, not ashamed to say it, I've shed tears, I've cried, I've threw my dummy out the pram, as the old expression is. I've had tantrums. It was getting to a point where if I thought my wife was even hinting about bringing up the topic, I would sort of just shut her down quite aggressively to a point where it was like, no, we don't go there. We never go there. And it was slowly taking over my life at that point. It really, really was. And there was nothing anyone could say that was going to get me out of this slump that I was in. You get people saying it's not that bad, it's not that noticeable, it's not. But for me, it was literally the be all and end all.
Yeah,
it was
literally like.
And I'm sure most guys at some point.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when it does get to that extreme where you're avoiding public situations, like you said, with your friends in the car, you don't even want to have your friends in the back seat because you don't want them to see any sign of thinning, because you know that they might comment on it. When it gets to that point and it's taken over your life that much, that's when you know you have to do something about it. But I can fully understand in the sense that when you're in that place and you're not even considering shaving your head, it does seem like the end of the world. And that's what a lot of people don't realize. Mental health can be a major factor when it comes to men's hair loss in particular. It can really affect people in terms of mental health and their confidence, and it doesn't help when you have, as I said earlier, with the media, the way they portray hair loss with young guys. It doesn't do us any favors because there's so much negativity and stigma.
There really is. I mean, I think with guys like yourself, I think that's improving. I do think we're in a better place now than what we were maybe 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I really do. I think there's as much of a stigma about it now. It's not as much of a sore subject, which is good.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, the whole it overtaking your life thing. If anyone was to tell me that's what they suffered with at the time, I completely understand what they're talking about. I really, really do. Mm-hmm. I mean, it got to a point where I couldn't have my photograph taken. I couldn't even have anyone take a picture of me because I'd only see. Whereas, and it was horrendous for quite a long time.
You'd see what everyone else might not be seeing because you're just analysing yourself to the last grain of detail, and that's what happens when you develop an insecurity. But in terms of you shaving your head eventually, what crossed over? So obviously you were in a place where no one could say anything to you. What eventually got you past that bridge and made you decide to shave your head? What pushed you towards doing it?
I think I've never really thought about it before, but I think until now actually, but I think turning 30 helped, believe it or not. I think once I turned 30, maybe subconsciously, it's not something I've ever really thought of, but maybe subconsciously it was something. I don't want to go bald in my 20s. Maybe that was something that was a part of it. So once I turned 30, I kind of went from there to there with wanting to do it, Yeah. And I did get to a point where I was kind of sick of the sound of my own voice, telling it, tomorrow I'll do it, and then I don't do it. Okay, I'll do it next week, and I don't do it. And that went on for, like I say, about 4 years of me constantly planning. Crazy. I was putting dates in my calendar. Right, the start of April, for example, this is when I'll do it, and I'll never do it. And you know what I mean? And I was always putting it off. And then it got to a point where there was one particular video I watched on YouTube. I can't for the life of me remember who it was now. But it must have been video number 250 odd. It must have been how many I've watched. But yeah, honestly, but yeah, there was just something about this particular video at the time where I kind of went, right, that's it. I'm sick of doing it. I'm sick of talking about it. I'm just going to get up and do it, and that's it. And one thing that I would recommend anybody, if they are thinking about doing this, is it helped for me personally. Once I bought the tools to do it, it was kind of like, well, if I don't do it, I've just spent money on them for no reason at all. And they're just going to sit on a shelf in the bathroom. But yeah, so once I bought the clippers and the means to do it, that was it then. And I, one more time, said to my wife, right, I'm going to do it on Sunday. Can't remember what day it was at the time, but I'm going to do it on Sunday this week. And I said, I'm going to need your help because I don't think I can sort of bring myself to do the clipper part. But I thought if she did that for me, she would do it to a point where there's no return. So then I have to go into the bathroom and get the blade out and do the rest of it. But and without exaggeration, and again, for anyone who's thinking about doing it, this is, apart from marrying my wife, this is probably the biggest thing I've done in my life, I'd say. Like, some people might laugh at that and go, well, you couldn't have done that much. but I kind of think that when it comes to sort of your own sort of own character development and what kind of, there is nothing that I've done bigger. It really is that big of a deal. And if there's anyone else out there that is feeling the same, we're all with you. We've all experienced it, I'm sure, to some degree. At some point. It's no little thing, this. it's a big deal. And kudos to all the guys out there who really don't see it as anything. I was extremely jealous of you guys at one point, but no, it's a big deal, and I'm so happy. It's changed my life for the better already. So
it's amazing. It's amazing to hear that,
especially with how much you had to deal with in terms of your mental health. I mean, it's beautiful when someone can come out on the other side of something like that, and being able, people might laugh and think, oh, all he did was shave his head, but you looked your insecurity in the face and you said, you know what, I'm not going to let you ruin my life. And just like that, you embraced it, and that does so much wonders for people, for a person, when they can actually look their insecurities in the face and embrace it. So well done to you there as well, Sean. I was going to ask, in terms of negativity now, did you experience any negativity towards the decision before or even after? So like, in terms of before, maybe, did you get anyone who was against it when you decided I'm going to shave my head, or did you have anyone after give you any, crap about it?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Which I imagine maybe I'm quite fortunate. I do know some people might get a little bit of stick out there for doing it. But to be honest with you, the only person who knew I was doing it was my wife. No one else knew I was doing it. Didn't tell anybody. It was a bit kind of like, you know, when you don't tell anyone you're having your driving test. It was kind of a bit like that. Like, in case I don't do it and bottle it, no one can, you know. So she was extremely supportive. She did find it strange the first couple of days to get used to it, but it was only the same as me, you know. And then afterwards, my mum and dad found it a little bit strange to begin with, but they're kind of used to it now. And I've had the odd bit of lad banter here and there, and you know, the odd sort of generic sort of names you might. But if I'm being completely honest, you kind of know when something's banter between mates, and you know when someone's actually trying to hurt you. You know,
yeah,
and absolutely. And I think if I wouldn't have experienced that little bit of banter, I probably would have questioned how they were feeling.
Yeah.
Are you a little bit insecure that I've done this? Is that why you're not saying anything? Like, in a way,
because you'd expect them to say
something, you know. So, because you expect them to, yeah, absolutely. But yeah, the whole thing of me shaving my head and then it getting to a point where it's literally something that's not thought about anymore between me and everybody else was about a week at most. At most. And as I say, it's by far it's one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. And
that's amazing.
Guys like yourself, and all the people out there, especially, I mean, there's guys on the internet, but especially YouTube and all the videos and tutorials that are out there. The job you guys are doing is just, if it weren't for these kind of videos and people like yourself, I would never have done it. I wouldn't have been sat here now with a shaved head. There's no doubt about that.
I think it was probably the same for myself, to be honest. I mean, I pretty much went on YouTube as well, and I would just watch head shaving tutorials. I mean, there was a lot less content back then when I decided to do it, so there was a lot less YouTubers doing videos on it. But I think the thing that pushed me as well was just, again, you get banter from friends, and I would get a lot of banter from my friends, and they weren't trying to hurt me, but they were also trying to kind of point out that you might need to do something about this eventually, and they were playfully trying to introduce me to the idea of potentially shaving my head, because they genuinely thought I wouldn't look that bad with it. But I've been in your shoes where the conversation is just, nope, this conversation is not happening, I'm not doing it.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely,
I can't thank them enough for all the banter now, because it's the best decision of my life in that sense as well, because it allowed me to embrace a physical, let's quote, flaw of myself, and realise that I don't really need it. It wasn't the end of the world.
No, absolutely not. And one thing that I was sort of terrified about when I first decided to sort of go for the Clippers was how I would then, because the idea of shaving my head, I was never going back. It was never coming back. I knew that it was something that I had to deal with. But then I at least wanted to like it after I'd done it.
Yeah.
Because then I don't want to bring on another insecurity of me not liking my shaved head. So after I'd done it, after about an hour, I kept going back and forth to the mirror and just having a look every now and again. I was a bit obsessed with the mirror, and I was sort of having a look in the mirror. And it actually got to a point where I thought, I actually really like it. I really, really like the style. Like, I think if I wasn't losing my hair and someone said, this is what you will look like once you've done it, I would have probably gone and just tried it for the sake of it, because I actually quite like the style. So
because there was nothing to lose.
Absolutely not. No pun intended.
would you say, yeah? Would you say, in terms of your confidence, then you're more confident about it now, or how long did it take you to feel confident about it? Was it an instant thing, or did it take you a week of looking in the mirror to eventually convince yourself that it was great? Because I mean, for myself, it took me a while. It took me about a good year, and I was always wearing hats, and I was shaving my head, but I would go out the house with a hat on, so I was killing the point of having a bald head. But it took me a little while.
Yeah. I'd say for me, probably a week. Probably a week before I sort of, it was after a week where I stopped looking in the mirror all the time, and kind of. And just accepted it. And what was really nice with it, once I got to that level of acceptance, it felt like I had a shaved head for years. It felt like I'd done it years ago. It was no longer, again, it's such a generic statement that you'll probably hear from loads of guys that have done it, but it's such a, you realise how big a deal it really isn't once you've done it, and how insignificant it is when it comes to building your character, and it really isn't. I mean, I'd never go back. I would never go back.
That's what I was going to ask you as well. Would you ever go back to that? In terms of even back then, would you say you're more confident now compared to when you were in your teens with that long, thick hair that you talked about? Would you say that you can look in the mirror and be more confident about how you look now compared to then?
Absolutely, yeah. I think back then, I mean, even though I had the security blanket of the thick long hair, I was still always trying to do it and maintain it. So even when it was thick and what I deemed perfect, I was still always fiddling with it. I was still always kind of
always looking in the mirror.
I'd always be looking in mirrors. Yeah, absolutely. So I was still always looking in mirrors, etc. Whereas now, I think I'm a hell of a lot more confident now. There's absolutely no doubt about it. And what is amazing is, and it's something that I've only just started to realise, is it's not only, I don't only gain confidence from how I look now. It's I'm doing better at work. I'm making better decisions outside of this bubble that I was in. And I don't know. I've got so much more time and to use on something that I deem a lot more important in life than what I've got up here.
Exactly.
And yeah, it's just the weight off the shoulders is just absolutely incredible. And all of that excess energy that I was putting into worrying about that hair is going into other things now, and I'm already seeing sort of results, you know, which is amazing.
That's really good to hear. And obviously, with the time we're in at the moment with coronavirus and lockdown, I mean, I've done a video on it myself where I think that people should take advantage of this time to embrace insecurities like hair loss. So would you say people should be taking advantage?
Yeah, I think so. I think personally that I do still think there's a little bit of that. You're ready when you're ready. I think there's a little bit of that, but I think you're absolutely right in the sense of it's, at least you're not meant to be seeing anyone outside your household at the moment. And if you are at that point where you're sort of thinking, you know what, I'm going to give it a go, then maybe there isn't a better time than right now. If you live on your own, especially, or you only live with your wife or your husband, whoever it might be, it's only going to be them and you that see it. If you really do feel that it's something that you're not ready for and you're not liking, throw it back. By the time the by the time the lockdown is finished and everything's back to some form of normality, no one would have known.
Exactly.
So I think it's an awesome time to do it. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm actually already seeing I'm seeing people do that online and on like social medias and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's been a lot of people.
People have already started. You know what? I'm just going to do it. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's a great thing, I guess, that's coming from this as well. I mean, as you said, people are going to be ready when they're ready, but it's good to see as well that people are taking advantage of the fact that, you know what, I'm at home. No one's going to see me except for, as you said, my loved ones. Why not do it? In terms of balding as well, there's a lot of guys out there who feel that when it comes to hair loss, it basically means it's the end of their love life, that they're not going to be attractive anymore. They're not going to be able to go on dates anymore because basically no woman in the world finds a bald man attractive. They have this crazy perception that it is genuinely over. So what I find interesting with yourself, and I've been through the same situation, you were with your wife before you had hair. I had met my fiance when I had hair, and then obviously you've continued your relationship throughout. So for the guys out there, I was hoping that you could explain, what did your wife kind of perceive you as in terms of, afterwards when you lost your hair and the way she perceived you before? Was there any difference? How did she view you any different, any less attractive? If you could give some insight in that regard.
Yeah, of course. Well, I think beforehand, I think she was very much on the same wavelength as me. It was kind of like, if you're going to do it, just do it. Okay. Eventually, I mean, don't get me wrong, I did have a conversation with her telling her that I was afraid that she wouldn't find me as I'm not the man that she married, so to speak, and all that kind of thing. So, but she reassured me, as she does. Went ahead and did it. I asked her to do the clipper work because I didn't think I could bring myself to do it. She did that for me. And as I say, yeah, the first sort of, when I first walked out the bathroom after I bladed it, she did sort of say, wow, I didn't expect you to look like that. But in no way was it a negative comment or anything like that. I mean, she was only feeling as weird as I was.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That shock.
That shock, yeah, absolutely. And then I'd say for the first 2 or 3 days, she was very much, it was almost like if she woke up before me in the morning and I'd come into the living room, it's almost as if she forgot that I'd done it. And then it'd be like a wall, you know what I mean? There'd be a bit of a shock factor to it, but that died after a couple of days. And yeah, I think she's probably more prouder of me now than she probably ever has been. She tells me every other day that she's incredibly proud for me for doing it still, and it's been a couple of months. So yeah, I think anyone who, I mean, again, I was like yourself, Ricky. I mean, I was with someone for quite a while before that, but it's like anyone who is not with someone at the moment and you're hoping to find a relationship but you are afraid that your thinning hair or your bald head is going to become some sort of issue, then if that person does find it an issue, then I don't think they're the right person. They're really not. I think the person will completely look past the lack of hair on your head. There's absolutely no doubt about it in my mind.
Exactly, because if they can't overlook something like hair loss, say if you're with them while you got hair and then you start to lose your hair, you don't want to ever be with someone that superficial that would actually leave you or, threaten leaving you or whatever else if you don't get a hair transplant. Or because I think that's what a lot of guys fear as well. They fear having a woman who will threaten them that if you don't get a hair transplant, then I'm leaving you. But as you said, it's not worth being with someone that superficial, because that would mean, say for example, God forbid, you had any kind of health problem, cancer, for example, where you had no choice but to physically change your appearance. I mean, you don't want to be with someone who would put you in that kind of stressful situation.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And just to echo what you said, I think anyone who is with someone that does start hinting that this balding or this hair loss is a problem, then I think you really sort of might want to think about reevaluating your sort of situation, because it's, in my personal experience, it's already so insignificant that I feel it should be that way for everybody. Exactly. Personally.
And you don't want to be with a person who will make it a significance on your life, because that will just destroy you at the end of the day, won't it?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Because I would kind of see that personally as kind of like some sort of ongoing sort of torture, in the sense of it's such a massive thing that you've done, embracing that hair loss and shaving your head, for then to have your nearest and dearest sort of say, oh, wow, I can't cope with that. You're going to have to be looking for some sort of hair transplant. You've just gone from one huge insecurity that you've just conquered right into another one. And I don't think anyone should be put in that position. I really, really don't. So.
Not at all. Exactly.
And that's another thing as well with myself. I mean, I was with, I had met my fiance in 2013 for the first time. And I'd done a video on this a long time ago. And I met her in 2013, and I looked very different at that point. I was about 22 years old. I had a short back and sides, number one on the back and sides, spiky hair, typical pretty boy at that point, and a completely different person. And then I rekindled with my fiance at this point. I rekindled with her in 2016. By that point, I had shaved my head, as you know, and I looked totally different. And I remember the first date that we had, I even came out the house with a cap on, because I was just, even though I knew she knew because she had seen my photos on Instagram, social media, I still came out with a cap on. But it was the shocking thing that as soon as I because she picked me up at this point, so I got in a car, the first thing she did was, oh, can I see your bald head? And she asked me to take my hat off, and she was like, can I touch it? And I was just like, she's really playful about it. Just like, wow, I was not expecting that one bit. So it just goes to show, doesn't it, in that sense, that it's not always what it's cracked up to be. People aren't always going to perceive it in that negative way that we think of in our heads.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of, I think, like you rightly said earlier, I think, unfortunately, we do live in a world where there is so much negativity regarding the losing of hair. And like I said, I do think it's better. I think the last few years, I think people are a lot more. I don't think it's as much as a. It's not like like something that people tend to worry about as much anymore. I think it's becoming a lot more common. You see it a lot more often, and you actually see a lot more. I mean, the amount of guys that I'm seeing that are in their teens who have done it, who I never would have done it in my teens.
Likewise,
but absolutely not. But you are seeing that now. And I think social media, if social media has done anything in regards to this, I think it's bring it to the forefront. And it's just nice that everyone sees that, oh, you know what, I'm not the only one. There's hundreds and thousands of people in this country alone who are going through the same thing. Exactly. And I think once you sort of get onto, I mean, every now and again, I've been on forums, and I've been on chat rooms. I've been on all sorts. I've done pretty much everything to try and share my story and try and get some advice. And so everyone is so nice about it as well. Everyone is so approachable. And just because you have something so big in common, such as hair loss, it feels like you've known a lot of these people for years, which is a really nice feeling. Really nice feeling.
You become part of a positive community, don't you? And that's the beauty of it. But yeah, just to kind of wrap it up then, I just wanted to ask, do you have any questions for myself, or do you have any more advice you want to kind of offer to the people that are watching this video, going back to obviously some of the dark places that you've been in to overcome this hair loss? Do you have kind of anything to add further to that?
I think in regards to, I think when it comes to advice or trying to give advice to people that might be sort of thinking about doing it now, I think as we've touched on before, I think I think this whole isolation thing that we mentioned before, I think definitely keep that in mind. It's probably as good a time as any to do it. So good luck to all you guys and girls who decide to do it. I do think that it's definitely not as frowned upon in society as it once was. Please don't think there isn't help out there. That's one thing that I struggled with at the very beginning, when I realised there was hundreds of thousands of people that are going through the same thing. It really does make a difference. you will realise that once you do it, quite how insignificant something like hair on the top of your head is on the grand scheme of things in your life. All of the energy that you have put in to worrying about this, just grab it and push it into something else. I guarantee that there'll be certain areas that you'll strive in that you may not have even thought that you'd strive in before, just because of the worry that you had previously. So it's not easy. It's not always easy. I found it hard to do. It took me, as I say earlier, it took me 4 years to finally come out and do it. Hopefully it doesn't take you guys that long. But I guarantee when you do it, you will see the results, and it will be a weight off. There's no doubt about it.
Absolutely.
100% agree with that advice. And I just have to say, Sean, you've been so inspiring just to me, just hearing your story as well today. I mean, I've never actually sat down with someone who's, you know, another bold brother in this sense, who's actually gone through what I've gone through. So to just hear it from somebody else and actually just generally speak about it, it's been really inspiring. So I want to say thank you so much for actually coming on the channel and just being willing to give your 2 cents on the matter.
Yeah, no, I've been more than happy to help. Like I say, I've been watching you a long time, Ricky, and it is quite surreal speaking to you finally, but and not just listening to you on the videos and stuff, but yeah, no, it's been an absolute honour. And if I can do even a smidgen as to what you're doing to inspire people to go ahead and do it, then I'm happy. So yeah, I'm really excited. I love it.
I truly believe that you will.
I truly believe this video will make a difference to people, anyone that watches it. I'm sure just being able to hear another person's perspective, because like I said, it's one thing for me to be on the camera at each video giving my opinion, but having someone else give theirs makes all the difference. So again, do you have any other questions you want to ask before we kind of wrap things up?
One thing I did want to ask, and being still relatively, that's another point I wanted to make earlier, just because I have shaved my head, it doesn't mean I still don't have certain issues with it. I still get a little bit of irritation here and there, Ricky. Do you suffer with that anymore, or?
Not as much, because just down to my technique when I actually shave my head. I mean, I remember the first time I ever shaved my head in that video that we discussed when I first ever did it. I think I spent about 2 hours in the bathroom just going over it over and over again, thinking, oh, is there any little, you know, you'll always feel when there'll be like the odd little part that you can't quite get. And I'm sure you've probably gone through that. There's always that one bit of stubble that you just will not be able to get rid of. And I probably made my head sore a lot at the beginning because I would always try and go over those same spots. And now I try and do it a lot less, and that does help, just going over it a lot less. And obviously your technique as well. You don't want to treat your head like you're playing Street Fighter on the top of your head. You don't want to batter your head, in other words. You want to make sure you're guiding the blade along. And that's something that's helped me.
I mean, I found personally that when I first started to shave my head, I mean, the obvious choice was to reach for the shaving foam. And I had a torrid time with shaving foam. It was never once a smooth shave until I found someone giving advice to use hair conditioner, believe it or not. And I use hair conditioner now, and I think they were saying something like it provides that extra bit of lubrication between the blade and the skin, or something along them lines. And since I've been using conditioner, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'd still make the odd mistake, we're only human, but yeah, conditioner, I have a much more comfortable shave. So anyone again who gives it a go with shaving foam and you find it a little bit torrid, then maybe try conditioner. I think it might be the way forward for a lot of people. Absolutely.
I've definitely used hair conditioner, but it's been more when I've just been lazy and not gone shopping for shaving foam, and then I've just been like to the fiance, can I borrow your hair conditioner, please? So that's a few times I've had to use it, but it definitely just does get the job done in my experience as well. So that's a good bit of advice there for everyone watching.
Absolutely.
But yeah,
I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I kind of feel that no one is. I mean, you are going to have times where you do shave your head and you will nick yourself, and I think the most important thing for me at the beginning was to not be afraid of the blade, and I think that's probably something that I think as soon as you stop fearing the blade, I do find that you'll have a much more comfortable shave. But good luck to everyone that's going to do it, and hopefully off the back of this video. So good luck to everybody.
Like I said in an earlier video, I mean, a lot of people will be going out after this quarantine looking very rough, very cavemanish, whereas we've got the blessing of being able to groom ourselves, take care of ourselves. We'll be coming out looking very fresh, very trim.
Absolutely.
But yeah, Sean, I want to thank you again so much for coming on the channel and being the first guest here, really. So other than my fiance, you're the first guest on the channel. So it's an honor to have you share your story once again. And hopefully we can catch up again in the future. And if you ever need any advice, if you ever want to talk, just give me a shout.
That's lovely of you, but thanks again, Ricky, for having me on. It's been an honor. Thanks very much.
Not a